So our opening keynote today is with Professor Emeritus at Cornell University, Mike Hoffmann, who recently published a book on the main underlying theme we are covering today, our changing menu, climate change and the foods we love and need. This will be followed by our panel discussion, but for now, Professor, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Anna and Tommaso. It's a privilege to be here today with everyone. And the topic is our changing menu, climate change and the foods we love and need. This is a story about what's happening to our food. And the intended audience is primarily the US and other rich countries, but especially the US because we have contributed more to climate change than most other countries, and we have the capacity to make a difference. And I love this quote to start a story about climate change. Better a cruel truth than a comfortable delusion. Edward Abbey, 1990. And I often ask the question, so what's this? And most people say, well, that's the Earth. Well, it's also home. And Carl Sagan says it well, our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity and all this vastness, there's no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. So what I'm going to do is present kind of an overview very briefly of climate change, what it means to the plants we depend on for life. We're going to take a short visit to a restaurant and check out the menu, and then focus on solutions, what's being done, what we can all do. That orange band on the surface of the Earth is called the troposphere. It's only 7 miles high. That's it. That's where all the action is occurring. That's climate change. That's global warming, weather, clouds. It's all in that very thin blanket. Sunlight comes down, hits the surface of the Earth, heats it up. That heat is radiated up. It encounters greenhouse gases, which absorb some of that heat and radiate some of it back. Simply put, we're adding more and more greenhouse gases to that tiny layer. It's getting denser. Things are warming up. The next time you're on a flight and you're at cruising speed, look down. You are essentially at the top of the troposphere, that thin layer, and looking down through it to the surface. That's it. It's not infinite. It's a relatively small space, and we're affecting it. You've all seen the hockey stick chart shown here, the graph from year 1000 to 2000. You can see in the late 1900s, 1800s, we started to burn a lot of fossil fuels and pumped a lot of greenhouse gases, in particular carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. June 3rd of 2021, we're at 420 parts per million. A year ago it was 418. We're 50% higher than we should be. And unless we do something serious, we could reach 800 parts per million by the end of the century. It's going to be a lot warmer. So it's real, it's us. Experts agree, it's serious, but there's hope. And another way to look at this is think of a bathtub. In the past, the faucet and drain were the right size and there was a balance. But now we've turned the faucet up by pumping more and more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and it's filling up. It really is serious. Here's a quote from the UN Secretary General. The point of no return is no longer over the horizon. It is in sight and hurtling towards us. There are many ways to talk about this topic of climate change and help raise awareness. You can talk about being personal, your children, your grandchildren, health, heat stroke, etc. Asthma is increasing. The economy, economic impacts are huge, as well as environmental. And then there's food. Why food? One of the challenges in communicating about climate change, it has to be relevant. Not everybody cares about glaciers melting in Greenland or something happening in the year 2100, too far away. But we all eat. Food is important to our cultures, our family traditions. It's emotional. I get emotional over food. A great glass of wine, a delightful meal, it's enjoyable. And those liquids are a social lubricant to help us socialize. It's important to the economy, easy to talk about. What's so cool is there are unlimited stories to tell how climate is affecting our food. First, let's pause. So where does it come from? A lot of us don't appreciate that. You can go to a farmer's market, upper left, Buy fresh vegetables probably grown within 20, 30 miles at most. You may have a grass-fed, some grass-fed meat, some of us. But a lot of that is actually grown in Australia. That's where it comes from. This seems like a happy farmer down under. Upper right, a family producing cacao for our chocolate. They make $4 a day. Lower left, a woman pollinating vanilla. It has to be done by hand. She's probably in Madagascar, maybe Indonesia. The middle and the bottom is one of the most dangerous occupations in the world, and that's fishing in the north of the Bering Sea. And finally, a farmer in Nebraska. My point, it comes from land and sea. There's also people. It's important to recognize and respect those who are producing that crop at the very beginning. It's changing. Remember the Suez Canal incident not that long ago, where the ship got sideways and blocked out the Suez Canal. There's a great report out of Chatham House in the UK about what are referred to as choke points, such as the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, some railroad situations, will be affected by climate change directly, potentially social unrest or political unrest, compromising the transport of the food we love and need. And what's happening to a plant? Look around your room. Any plants to look at? They need air, specifically carbon dioxide, water, warmth, soil, and sunlight. But everything is changing except sunlight. Let's look at increasing carbon dioxide. There's an argument that you will hear. This is beneficial. Agriculture will do much better because 95% of the crops actually benefit with more CO2 in the atmosphere. But in reality, there won't be a benefit. It's going to be offset by climate change. With higher CO2, weeds become harder to control. There's actually a study that showed there's 30% less protein in pollen for bees on one species that they depend on in the fall because of rising CO2. In the more ominous one, human nutrition, less protein, vitamins, minerals in many crops with rising CO2. There's some subtle changes too, flavors, colors. What about changes in temperature? Sounds like it's just warming, but it's not simple. Cool regions are warming faster than warm regions, say northern latitudes versus southern latitudes. Cold seasons warm faster than warm season. So in the US, winters are warming twice as fast as summers. And this is a really big deal because fruit and nut crops require a winter chill. If it gets too warm, no fruit, no nuts. 2017, Georgia, the peach state, very few peaches because the previous winter was simply too warm. Likewise, nights are warming faster than days. This affects crop yields, and obviously heat waves can result in damaged yields to many crops. Changes in water, global shifts, where it falls, how it falls, when it falls. In general, wet areas will get wetter, dry areas drier. And more extremes. In the Northeast, we're up over 50% in heavy downpours. Precipitation events and intermittent droughts are increasing. And I think everybody's aware of the mega drought now hitting the Southwest and Western states. This could go on for several years. And yes, ice melts when it gets warmer. That means retreating glaciers, less water for irrigation, and cities and hydroelectric power. This is serious. Stop and pause. Can you imagine? Without ice cream, there would be darkness and chaos. And melting glaciers are bad enough, but the lofts of coffee is downright terrifying. This is the one that motivates me. So our menus is changing. Look at the upper right, those beverages, water dependent. It's a major impact. Quality and quantity of water is very important to those industries. Gin, for example, across all brands requires about 150 different botanicals. Some of those are at risk. Salads, 40% decrease in yields in California in the next 20 years because of higher temperatures. The main course, upper left, seafood is being impacted in a variety of ways. Populations of fish are moving so they can stay in climes that are acceptable to them and where the food is. Sides, bread. I already mentioned decrease in protein in wheat. Garlic, interesting story. If you feed garlic to cows, they produce less methane. Olive oil, most of it comes from Spain. And They're being challenged by droughts and higher temperatures. Finally, dessert. Think chocolate, think vanilla, a variety of things, and many stories to be told. And last, the most important, coffee. Not only are they being stressed by new changes in the environment, but also a new pest. And here's something we can all do. Make a list of your favorite foods or beverages. Here's mine. And you take your smartphone and just do a search, climate change and your favorite food. And you're going to find that there's a story behind many things. You can also put on this list things that you sort of care about, and that's kale. There's my son-in-law being requested by his wife, my daughter, to drink a kale drink. And in reality, I eat kale. I'm only adding this for a little humor. But think about plant-based products, perfumes, pet food, and a lot more. These are billion-dollar industries, also changing. So saving the foods we love and need. Also, stories that need to be told. They're hope. They're inspirational. Let's start with stewards of the land, farmers and ranchers. They're adopting, let's put it bluntly, there's a long ways to go, but a lot of them are adopting climate-smart farming, where they focus on the soil, the best management practices for water and pest, diversification for financial resiliency. So if you are hit with a storm and you have multiple crops, you still have an income. Reducing stress on livestock, especially heat, and long-term planning, thinking ahead. What's it going to be like in 10 years? What can I grow? How will I be successful? And the food and beverage businesses are also doing a lot. They're looking at their supply chains, such as transport of their raw product. They're investing in suppliers to ensure productivity and resilience. Those are the growers, wherever they may be in the world. It's good for all parties involved, both the growers and the companies that produce the final product. They're encouraging climate-smart farming. They're mitigating their impact on the climate by reducing everything from bottle weight for some beverages to reducing energy use in their facilities. And some are starting to look at alternative ingredients to stay in business. What science is doing. To me, this is an incredible opportunity to connect science and the food we love and need. Resilient crops, drought resistant, salt resistant. And we have to consider in this genetic engineering. Soil health, again, water and pest management, lots of work on that. Climate modeling, what's it going to be like in 10, 20 years to help those growing the food, those transporting the food to get it to our table. Decision tools, helping farmers decide when is the best time to irrigate. Communication is so critical. The research behind how to tell this story the best is so important. And obviously, a lot of work on economic impacts of climate change, both sort of the challenges, but also opportunities. And what can we all do? First, make sure we're all climate change literate. Understand the cause, understand the impacts, make sure you can make informed decisions about what you do to address it. Talk about it. 2/3 of the people in the US never talk about climate change, yet it is the starting point for understanding and appreciating and raising awareness about climate change. Like this symposium, consider a more plant-based diet. In particular, and the approach we take is consider red meat a delicacy, not a staple. Assess your own carbon footprint, get involved, it's political, get political, be courageous. Most important, push for change is big enough to matter. And I'm glad to be here, because this is about where the food and ag industry meets for a healthy future of food, for a smarter future of food, for a sustainable future of food. Glad to be part of this conversation. And let's look at what we can possibly do through food. Can we find a common ground, such as joining forces, the consumers, chefs, restaurateurs, food industry producers, and we don't see villains in this whole process. We're all in together. Can we join forces to create the transformation we need? So what have we done? We have a book, a website, and we aspire to create a climate change social movement driven by food. And that is why I'm here today, to listen, to learn, and see how we can fit in and join forces. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoy the symposium.
That was fantastic and deeply inspiring. Thank you very much, Mike.